Just add that to that one and listen to this one. And we'll turn off the mic.
Bless you. Now I'm meeting of the Princeton Board of Education in Matthews Auditorium. Call to order. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the regular meeting. Roll call.
Mrs. Wider?
Here.
Mr. Simons?
Present.
Mrs. Cleveland? Here. Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Kessler?
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval or revision of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland? Yes. Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler? Yes. Mrs. Wider?
Yes. Motion passes. Next is the inspirational message given by Sharonville Elementary School. Get on the bus with Sharonville.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Casey Jordan, and I am the principal at the Sharonville Elementary School. And today I have several students with me who will help share a little bit of information about an exciting day that we had at Sharonville back in October. Sharonville was selected by the Ohio Association of Elementary School Administrators to be one of the stops on their State of Ohio bus tour. OAESA had administrators that actually paid money to go around the state and visit schools, and so we were stop number one on their tour. And so for our tour, our students served as the tour guides. They were the docents for that day. And so they wanted to highlight and share for you some of the information that they shared when our visitors were in the building.
At Sharonville, everyone comes to this school to work. We are taught that everyone can be a leader. We apply for jobs each month. Some of our jobs are birthday greeters, library helpers, playground monitors, lunchroom assistant. We get paid Viking bucks for doing our jobs. We use our Viking bucks to shop at our Viking store. Let's go check out the store. Welcome to the Viking store. Every student earns Viking bucks for the positive things they do at our school. Kids get to shop 2 times a month.
Our parents work in the stores so we can shop. Our parents make sure the store is filled with things that we like. The store teaches us how to save our money. Your next stop is Student Council. We are in charge of recycling. We do service projects such as Hands Against Hunger, support building fundraisers, and getting our classmates excited. We are in charge of our campus beautification.
We were the first elementary school in our district to have a Hope Squad. Our job is to support kids and let them know there are people they can talk to if they are feeling sad. We meet 1 time each month during school.
We shared what we learned.
So ladies and gentlemen, one of the visuals that you have on your screen, our kindergarten classrooms created digital portfolios. And if you scan the QR code, you will see one of those student portfolios, which highlights some of the work that the kids were able to take advantage of. It would be classroom celebrations, academic celebrations, and so we're really proud of our kindergarten students. Our specialized classrooms actually was a part of our tour. We have 2 of those classrooms at Sharonville, and we shared with our visitors some of the strategies and techniques that are used in that classroom, which helps our students get acclimated to the general education setting and to have goals in terms of how to regulate emotions and regulate self. So we're also still very proud of having that unique program within our building.
Each student got to pick a power word that describes them. We earned badges for our accomplishments and our jobs. The lockers let us see what we have in common with other kids. A locker without any badges is a reminder to teachers to help that kid get connected here at school. We work on our Ready Path every week. We have challenges to get us excited to pass our lessons. There are prizes for a grade or for a classroom. The goal for this year is for 80% of us to reach our goal. Reaching our goal is good, but we like our stretch goal better. This ends our portion of the tour. Thank you.
So we also decided to share this slide for some of you who've been in Princeton for a while. We even had a familiar face. Steve Zinzer was also a part of our tour on that day, so we were excited to see Steve.
We did let Miss Jordan talk a little bit at the end.
So they wouldn't let me take over their own show, but they told me, get it to the end, lady, and keep it brief. So this concludes our presentation of the tour that we were able to provide to OAESA back in October. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here this evening. Okay. Come on. Now they don't want to leave. We did it. You're good.
If I might add as testimony to my advanced age, I spent way over 30 years teaching at Sharonville, and one of my former students was a parent here tonight.
Wow.
So yes, Gina, I'm old.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am. Next is recognition of visitors. I'm sorry. Okay, there are none. Next is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Then Mrs. Petter, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
yes.
Mrs. Kessler,
Yes.
Mrs. Weider,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is district business, approval of the November 2023 financial report.
I move to approve the November 2023 financial report.
Second,
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
have all the documents were attached on Friday, so you have all those. The November monthly report of the financial target with our forecast. On expenses that always work their way out as we progress through the fiscal year. You have your ESSER monthly report. As I've said, we're down to final ESSER grant under $2 million that hasn't been spent or unencumbered, moving right along, must be expended by September 30th of 2024. We're progressing well. And then you have your donation refund report. Balance is doing well. And then the others are the reconciliation and the investment report.
Any discussion? Okay. And we did move in second, didn't we?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Moore?
I just confessed my advanced age, so,
yes.
Mrs. Kessler,
Yes.
Mrs. Weider,
yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is academic update. We did, she talked about all those. Oh, okay, I apologize. We have the approval of the amended appropriation resolution and amended certificate of estimated resources.
On behalf of the treasurer, I move to approve the amended appropriation resolution and amended certificate of estimated resources.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded.
Just a
Mrs.
couple changes to the appropriation and certificate. The main one I needed to get handled was we received some of our ECF reimbursements. It is an arm of ESSER funding, but you have to spend the money, then apply, and this funds just came in. So there were 3 different reimbursements here for $147,000. So we will do an accounting entry to the 599 fund from those funds that were spent. We also received a little additional grant money that I added the $2,500, and then we had a change to the state funding that took effect, I think it was October or November, and NJROTC also had additional funds that we were not anticipating. So all good, all pluses there, and then the ECF at the bottom is, of course, the money coming in, then the money will be spent. So that's the change to the appropriation and certificate.
Anything else with that? Next is approval of field placement affiliation agreement with Grand Canyon University.
We have to vote on that.
Someone want?
We have to vote.
Grab a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You missed the vote.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is approval of field placement affiliation agreement with Grand Canyon University.
Is it UC or Grand Canyon?
It's Grand Canyon. This one is.
So that's different than one we had in prep?
No, we have Grand Canyon prep. I think he might have mentioned we use UC as well to do this, but Grand Canyon is what we talked about in prep. It's just for our student teachers and cooperating teachers. Let me see. I got it right here too.
This is agreement with the University of Cincinnati.
Oh, sure does. Okay. I know, I remember him talking about Grand Canyon. I remember him mentioning Cincinnati, so I got it right. Yeah, you're right.
So which one are we going
Which one is it?
Which one is it for this one?
Is
I think it's Grand Canyon.
Okay, so we need to update the
Oop.
board docs.
Yeah, just that.
Should we make a motion for the amended changes and go ahead and vote for it? Or is there a time restraint on this? We-
For all
to-
the length.
To vote for Grand Canyon? Or can we just, I guess what I'm really asking is, can we right now amend the motion to make sure it states that it's Grand Canyon and then go ahead and vote on it tonight?
I'm not
Well, I
sure
think
when, I'm not sure when that starts. Dr. Jameson?
So there are actually two, one for the University of Cincinnati, which should be included in the materials that you have. But then in addition to that, there was one that was also included and reviewed by legal counsel for Grand Canyon University. For the Grand Canyon University agreement, we currently have a paraprofessional who's gone back to school to get his teaching license. In order to complete the teaching license program, he has to complete his student teaching next semester.
So if we amended it to include both Grand Canyon and University of Cincinnati, would that cover the
That would
student?
cover it, yes. And,
There's no agreement in here for Grand Canyon.
okay, it was submitted, so we'll have to follow up and make sure that it's
it's
included
on
in the
the-
materials.
It's on the agenda, but there's no sheet here, and then there's no mention of UC on the agenda now.
Did you say
So we
legal
have
counsel?
50 of one and 50% of the other.
Did you say legal counsel reviewed it?
Legal counsel has reviewed both, yes.
Thank you.
On the online, that has Grand Canyon on there, and it has all
Okay.
the information.
Right.
On this paper, it only had Cincinnati,
Okay.
Correct,
for whatever reason. But I do remember having a
Cincinnati's
conversation on
missing.
both in prep.
yeah.
Yeah, so we can amend the motion to ensure that the student gets what is needed. So we can amend I don't know who made the motion, or if anyone did yet, but I would like to make the motion and amend it. Okay. Is it time? Is there any more discussion?
Well, there might be, depending on what's going on.
I'm making a motion for the approval of field placement affiliation agreement with both Grand Canyon University and the University of Cincinnati.
And your concern is that we don't have the Cincinnati one, right?
Correct.
He says it's that way online.
Is it necessary to do both
It's
tonight?
online.
Dr. Jameson, Cincinnati was not listed here online. The Grand Canyon one, this young man that's doing it needs to start second semester.
That's correct.
So we need to try to get that one through so he can handle his business. If we don't get it through, then we don't have a meeting until after the
Right.
first year.
Correct.
The UC one is not listed in here. I'm not sure why that
When
is.
is that needed by? This UC one?
UC, yeah.
For the University of Cincinnati, it's next semester as well. I can follow up with Mary Slaughter to make sure that both are uploaded in board docs.
So I think for folks doing this and trying to do it, it'd be beneficial if we do
Yeah.
both, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I think we need to include in the motion
Yeah.
that the legal counsel has approved both.
He already
dates.
stated that.
Yeah.
It's not in the motion, Gina.
I don't think it needs to be. The personnel director says it's already been reviewed by legal counsel.
Okay, I'm missing it. I can't hear what happened.
All I'm suggesting is that because we're missing documentation, is that
So you want me to just amend it? Oh, I'll amend it again. I would like to amend my motion, and the amended motion states the following. Let me go back to it. Approval of field placement affiliation agreement with Grand Canyon University and the University of Cincinnati with support from legal counsel. That's the amended motion. To cover your concern. Is there a second? I guess not.
Okay. My thought is, if it's not needed tonight, we are meeting again tomorrow, is that correct?
Yes.
You will have a quorum. If we don't do it tonight, can we just do the University of Cincinnati tomorrow night?
That would be,
And just
Yeah,
vote?
that'll solve the
Okay,
problem.
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
That way
So
we
let's-
don't have
So we
to
just want to do Grand Canyon.
elaborate
tonight.
right now, one way or
Yeah,
the
that
other.
should work. Yes,
So
ma'am.
there is
Okay.
a second on Gina's motion,
So I'll
so we can drop.
drop it. And now my motion is approval of field placement affiliation agreement with Grand Canyon University.
Now I
That's my
second.
motion. Thank you.
Did you say? what
I
did you-
second. I said
Oh,
now I
she
second.
seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Next is to set the 2024 budget hearing meeting date, time, and location for January 2024.
Okay, you skipped the organizational meeting.
I'm sorry, Mary, what did you say?
She said the budget, not the organizational.
D,
Budget's on the next page.
D, at the bottom.
Oh, down at the bottom. I've scribbled so much in that one. Set the 2024 organizational meeting location, date, and time for 2024.
She was reading off of the old
Okay.
from the agenda.
Any
So we're,
input?
Well, I'm just gonna make a motion that we meet on the first day the school is open, which is January 3rd, 2024.
And I'm going to suggest that we do it on January 8th. I really just wanted to have a conversation as to why we're doing it on the 3rd.
Well, probably the same question I have is why we wanna wait till the 8th.
The 8th is our normal schedule is the second Monday of each month. If we're going to do January differently, which we can, I was just asking why. Or are we
Well-
going to change our meeting date?
We could,
No, we can, that's what I'm saying. Or are we going to change our meeting date?
we could.
I just want to I'm just looking for the schedule to be whatever the schedule is. So I didn't understand why because right now it looks like we're trying to do a third meeting, and I wasn't sure. The conversation was going back and forth, so I decided, let's not do that, let's just have a conversation. So what dates are we going to have our meetings going forward? Because that is not, we can always change it, but if it is, then we're changing it for every month going forward.
Okay, so the date of the 3rd is the best thing for everyone involved.
Not for me.
Why is it the best thing?
Well, let's look at it this way. When does your term end
My term on what?
on the board?
In 2 years?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I think the three of us, our term ends on the 31st of December. There is no board.
No, it is a board.
No, there's a board of two.
No, there's not a board of two.
Okay, so what are you saying? You're saying
Okay,
that there,
I
are you
had-
saying there's a carryover?
It
effect?
is.
No, it's
I had Chris
you have it in front of you. If you look at from OSBA, how it actually work is the board, there is no such thing as a gap. So if you look at, there's no such thing as a gap.
There's a common misperception, winding up the year, that the old board must meet in January to wind up last year's business.
No.
That's what it says. That's what it says.
Okay.
That's what it says.
While it is common practice to administer the oath of office to newly elected members as part of the board's organizational meeting, is not mandatory, which goes to what you're saying. However, it also states that in terms of winding up a year, we don't have to, there is this common misconception that the old board must meet in January to wind up last year's business. That's not true. We continue on with whomever's on the board, and the only
The
thing,
two people.
the five of us.
Mary,
But theoretically, am I understanding it? Theoretically, the three of us have terms that end December 31st.
That's true.
that's right.
But
And then-
legally,
and then up
okay.
and until we get sworn in,
Legally, a Board of Education is an ongoing entity regardless of any changes in membership.
the Board of Education.
Is an ongoing entity. The new board is
Does-
authorized to act on any and all items that are deemed old business,
If there
including the
are
approval
only-
of minutes
if
and.
there are only two people on the board.
This is saying, because it's based on when you were certified. You were certified as winning your
Where does it
election.
say it's based on when you were certified?
It's in here. Once, let's see.
If you read where it talks about the interim,
Because it says
there's
if
a
urgent
gap of
business.
time. Right, urgent business.
If urgent business must be conducted prior to the organizational meeting, the board may issue public notice and conduct the organizational and other business earlier.
So that means that people have to be sworn in if there's urgent business.
Right.
So my question is, if you talk to other municipalities, meaning Lincoln Heights, meaning Evendale, Springdale, Woodlawn,
We have different
Sharonville,
issues.
the next day after the term ends is when everybody is sworn in again and they have their organizational meeting. Last year, we had our organizational meeting on or about the 4th or whatever. So I'm not understanding why people are reluctant to step up to the plate and accept their responsibility as soon as they can.
Okay, what are we stepping up to do?
You never know.
Again, if something urgent comes up, then we would meet at that point, and during that meeting, you would take the oath and we would continue on. What I'm getting at is, if you're gonna do an extra meeting, and we have to understand.
We're not talking about an extra meeting.
It is, you're talking about, okay, so you're saying we're gonna do the 3rd and we're gonna skip the 8th?
We could, yes.
I'm asking, I don't know
Yes,
what you're
yes.
intending.
But I'm
I'm
intending
asking
to have the
questions.
organizational meeting on the 3rd. If that means that we can have the normal meeting on that same day, which we've done in the past, that's fine.
I still don't understand why.
Because 2 years ago, we had 3 in January when we did our oath.
I wasn't there that day. I was out sick, so in fact, that time I also questioned why we were doing it.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, this isn't a new conversation for me. I'm just trying to
it's not-
understand.
It's not new for me either.
Well, John, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to understand why are we doing what we're doing? If this is not if we're gonna have our meetings on the second Monday, and if we're gonna switch that, then we need to talk about that too. But if our meetings are gonna continue to be the second Monday and the 4th Monday for the special meetings, then I don't see why January should be any different. I mean, barring that 2 years ago when you guys did at that time, my 10 years on this board, we have never done this.
Well,
I mean, it
I'm
doesn't
also
mean that
going-
we
I'm
don't
also
do it.
going
I'm
to
just
say
saying we
that
have
you
never done
guys
it.
proffered the theory that even though your term expired the 31st of December, that you could still vote on things.
We didn't vote. Our first meeting was.
We did vote. Back in 2019, there was an attempt to vote on some things, even though people were not properly sworn in.
Our first meeting, whatever that meeting is when we're sworn in.
You missed what I said. What I said was, there were motions made in non-voting members who are allowed to vote.
I don't remember that. I mean, I'm sorry.
I mean,
just
I'm
don't
just trying to
remember.
tell you, we can go back and look at the roll of tapes from, I guess it would be in 2020. My point is that most governing bodies take their oath of office the day after. They're meeting on New Year's Day in Sharonville.
I
They're
would
meeting on
propose
New
that.
Year's Day in Lincoln Heights. They're meeting on New Year's Day in Woodlawn. Princeton doesn't want to meet because it's not on the schedule, which we control, and I don't see the logic in that.
I just don't see the urgency in it, but
Well,
that's me.
everything
That's just
doesn't
me.
have to have an urgency. There could just be what the right thing is at the time.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
can I just say something real quick? If we're gonna do the 3rd, let's do all the meetings on the 3rd. If we're gonna do the 8th, let's do it all on the 8th. That's what it sounds like to me. So, I mean, if that's okay with you guys, it sounds like, instead of adding that extra meeting, you're saying, if we're gonna do something on the 3rd, if you vote for that, let's go through and have the organizational meeting, swearing in, and then do our normal meeting.
No, we would, yeah. I mean, because I
In
don't
that
case,
understand.
we wouldn't have one.
I mean,
So that's up to you, you know.
when we did it 2 years ago or whatever, and we did 3 meetings, I don't subscribe to that because I think we shouldn't have done that. But then, again, I know we have to do it by the 15th, I believe, by law.
By statute, yes.
By statute, it has to be done by the 15th. And I would venture to guess if you were to poll districts around us, it's all over the place.
And so, if we were to poll districts all around us, none of them are Princeton.
What do you mean, none of them are Princeton?
It's real, this is the polling I am concerned
I
about.
agree, so I don't ascribe to the city governments either. I mean, I agree with you. This is
No, I'm
us.
just saying they are at least part of our district. More so than
What they do and what we do is
Glenwoods or-
completely
or
different.
Sycamore or Mason or Dakota or whoever else.
Can we figure out what we'll do, 3rd, all on 3rd, all on 8th? If something you guys want to vote on or whatever, I think that's the,
Well, I'm just gonna make a motion. I was trying to wait for Gina to
Okay.
get back, but
Okay.
I'll make a
Yeah, I think
motion.
we need to wait for her to
yeah,
get back.
yes, I agree.
While you're waiting, can you open that? please?
Again, I just don't want us to set a standard that this is what we're going to do every year, because I don't see the necessity. I really don't.
Well,
I mean, I
do
think
see-
either we get the public used to what our schedule is, which is second Mondays, or we don't. I mean, I don't see why January has to be any different. And so I'm going to state that. For me personally, it's not going to matter. I mean, I'll be here either way. I just didn't want to start a precedence on something that I didn't understand why.
The precedence has already been established.
That was 2 years ago, first time.
There wasn't an election last year.
I said 2 years ago.
Right, I said there wasn't an election
Oh,
last year,
no.
so this will be
Well,
the
that's,
second time.
well, it's still a precedence that's being established.
And that's a good precedent.
I don't agree, but okay, we can move on.
Delays are,
We can move on.
Can you explain to Gina?
I am so
this-
sorry.
This,
Nature called. I had to answer.
the suggestion was made to make a motion so that we can move forward. So I'm going to move that we set the organizational meeting and the regular meeting for January 3rd. Do I have a second?
I have a question.
Oh, well, question is, do I have a second?
Second.
But the question is,
I'll second, so.
before I left, it was the 8th.
No, it was not the 8th.
I heard someone mention January 8th.
Well,
That is correct.
normally
I did
that
mention the 8th.
would be our first meeting, but because there are 3 people who need to be sworn in to be part of the board, it may be wise to get them sworn in a timely fashion.
I've been on this board 8, coming up on 9 years, and it's usually not the first Monday. It's usually more like the 8th. And I thought this is something we were going to discuss in executive session, and maybe we could vote on it tomorrow. But it sounds like you guys want to move ahead with January 3rd, you said?
Yes. Wednesday.
But what about
January
this?
3rd. What about
It
it?
doesn't matter, that's
It
what he's
doesn't
saying.
matter?
What about it?
Who said it doesn't matter?
I'm asking, what about it?
I'm asking who said it doesn't matter.
Mary Cleveland just said
I
it
just said
doesn't matter.
Well, she's a lawyer. She said it doesn't
Oh,
matter.
my
Guess it
God.
doesn't matter.
No, it matters, but to this particular body, it doesn't matter, is what it sounds like.
Oh, it matters to me. Because I would rather meet on the 8th, which is more in line with what we have traditionally done.
Traditionally.
And I'm not saying if you could, I'm talking right now. I'm almost
You
done.
cut me off before.
I don't think I cut you off,
I
but
think you did, but I'll let you go ahead now.
you're going to let me. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, when you say traditionally, how far are you going back? Because we used to not have meetings on Mondays. We used to have them on Tuesdays. So, as a board, so how far are you going back when you say traditionally? And 2 years ago, we had a meeting on the 4th of January.
That was an exception,
Also, it's an exception.
because all the previous years, it was more
Again,
in line with the
I
8th. questioned
that one too, so I'm being very consistent
A
in my
repeatable
questioning.
error
So,
is still a
No,
repeatable
I didn't
error.
say it was an error. I'm just saying there was a situation where we had to do it that way, and I can't remember why, but that's the only reason we made the exception that year. So, the motion has been made and seconded?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
We have a date,
I think we kind of
we need a
did.
time and a location.
I forgot, I do have a question. Just remembered. Aren't you working on something you have to prepare for us?
I have the tax budget, but I can get it done.
When will the tax budget, do you have enough time to do the tax
I will get
budget?
it done. I will get it done.
Because it seems like we'd be putting her under undue pressure if she has to,
I'll get it done.
okay.
So we need,
And it just seems to me, again, if we have some kind of an emergency in the district or something that we call for the board, until, if we go with the 8th, then there are only 2 people on the board.
Well, let me read this just to be clear so that we're not misconstruing how that actually works. Board members begin their terms on the first day of January after the election and hold office for terms of 4 years. A board member is officially elected when he or she has been certified as elected by the County Board of Election, and that usually happens approximately 10 days after the election. So we are okay. There is no gaps
Where is
in,
it? Where are you
that's at
reading
the very
from?
beginning. However, if we're saying that we're concerned that some urgency or emergency may arise, at the time that, and this is what has happened in the past, because there has been times where we had to meet earlier than our date, sometimes because that date falls too close to the 15th. And so we would then just meet earlier to make sure that we get everybody voted in, and we're done. I mean, it's not that we can't do it on the 8th. I mean, again, if something happens between the 1st and the 8th, right now, if something happened between the 1st and the 3rd, we would be in the same situation. It doesn't change anything. So, but if this body feels that they're concerned that we're somehow going to miss out on something because we're not properly formed, then so be it.
I don't feel like we're going to miss out on anything. I think the main thing we'll be missing out on if we did it on another date besides the 8th is there are other municipalities and school boards and probably friends and family who are being sworn in that first week, which we might miss. But the date that you guys have come up with really doesn't work for me, but the 8th works perfectly for me.
Okay, so the oath of office is, board members must take the oath of office at the beginning of each term.
By the 15th.
Correct.
And the 8th is what, a week before the 15th?
The oath should be taken before a board member is seated or assumes their duties. So to go back to this certified for the election, there's a difference between being elected and being sworn in. And there is.
But again, we
there
have until
is-
the 15th.
There is legal precedence for that. But there's been a motion made.
That's fine, let's
and
keep
a
moving.
seconded. We were just waiting for Gina to return. We should, it's either up or down.
Susan?
What
Are
goes
we
to-
done? Do we
And we
want
still
her
need
to
a time
call
and a
the?
location in that motion.
Did we vote?
6:30.
Oh, we're going to add a time and location.
And location.
6:30 at the Relish Pack building.
At the board office.
In that same place.
It is, but I was just being very clear. It's the board offices.
Does 6:30 work for the rest of you? Does 6:30 work for the rest of you all?
I don't know that it matters.
Wasn't that the time we usually start?
I don't know. I just was trying to be considerate of other people's schedules.
I think staying consistent with the time would be good, whatever the date is. It works.
Chris, did that settle the time and location?
That does.
She
Okay.
needs, Susan?
That's fine by me.
No, I meant you need to
I'm
get
the
her to
old
call
boring
for-
one in the group. I don't care where we are.
That's not what I was saying.
Yeah.
Miss-
My husband is on dialysis, and we have other medical issues we're dealing with right now, and that's why the 8th works better for me.
Mrs. Petter, do you want to call the roll?
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
No.
Mrs. Moore,
No.
Mrs. Kessler,
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder.
Yes.
Susan?
I'll put my glasses back on. We need to set the 2024 budget hearing meeting date, time, and location for January 2024.
I guess the question is, are we having a meeting on the 3rd and the 8th? We did not, that's why I said no. We did not clarify that, so right now, I'm not sure what we're doing. And I'm assuming that for those who said yes, that the budget hearing is going to be the same date as, I'm assuming that.
I believe the motion included the organizational meeting and the regular meeting.
Okay.
And historically at Princeton, the budget hearing occurs right before
Right.
those two meetings.
Sure
Exactly.
does.
Will you be able to have everything ready?
I will have everything ready.
Not working on the 1st and 2nd?
I will have everything ready.
And you're not going to take a Christmas
See, that's-
break?
I will have everything ready. It's my job.
I know what she's saying.
Okay, I'm just trying to be considerate of your
For the Board
time.
of Education.
And that was nice, Jimmy.
So typically, historically, it would be at 6:15. If we're going to start the meeting at 6:30, it's typically 15 minutes before the meeting.
That's, yeah.
Who has to be in attendance for that?
Historically, everyone has been present.
The board.
All right.
I might have a problem, but the rest of you all will be here.
So we need a motion then to set the budget hearing date, time. I move that we have the 2024 budget hearing meeting at the Relish Pack Center at 6:15 on January 3rd, 2024.
Second.
We'll say again, January what?
3rd,
3rd.
2024.
I had the rest right.
Okay, it's been moved to second.
Okay, I'll second that. Mrs. Petter?
I think she already seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Didn't
if she did.
Didn't she?
I think,
Did you already second that?
who?
Oh,
Mrs. Kessler did.
I heard someone.
Okay, then Mrs. Kessler did.
Mrs. Cleveland,
No.
Mrs. Moore,
No.
Mrs. Kessler,
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes,
Mr. Simons.
Yes.
thank you, motion passes. Next is the appointment of President Pro Temp for the 2024 organizational meeting.
I make a motion to nominate Mary Cleveland as President Pro Tem for the 2024 organizational meeting.
Is there a second?
Is there another nomination?
Is the motion alive or not alive?
If someone seconded it, it's alive. If they don't, it's dead, according to parliamentary procedure.
Okay.
Unless we got different rules.
I think you're correct.
Well, in keeping with all of the tradition around here, I'm going to suggest and make the motion that Susan Whiter be the President Pro Tem for the 2024 organizational meeting.
Second.
Wait a minute. Is that, if she's not, is that possible, Chris?
I think it was in here.
Yeah, that's a question.
read
I
that.
think,
And that
Because-
is what I'm talking about, right there.
I think
But it's
because
just for that one
But that,
moment.
but that's what I'm talking about
everyone,
right there.
But that's not a vote. That person isn't gonna, there's not gonna be a
But
vote
she
before
should
that.
not have any power. She's not sworn in.
That's just so that she can be sworn in, no matter what the meeting is. Whether the meeting's on the 3rd or the 8th. I don't want,
It's on the third. It's on the third.
So Christine, where are we?
we have a motion and a second for Mrs. Whiter to be President Pro Tem.
And the discussion is she legally able to do such?
I believe since the Board of Elections has certified all of you that you are, in fact, the members of our Board of Education because you have been elected and that you all have standing.
I'm not,
It does say that the person selected may be last year's president if that person will still be on the board, so.
And I gave a copy of my election paper to Mary Slaughter.
you guys are reading all kind of stuff.
it is in there. They're reading from the paper.
And it could be the most senior board member or any other member of the board.
And be real careful, Gina, because I'm the most senior
Oh, no,
person
I
in
didn't
the
mean-
room. Really, really.
That's not the kind of senior. I'm talking about
Okay,
tenure,
Susan?
senior time,
Susan,
age.
No matter
Susan.
which way you figure it,
Susan, can we go on with the vote?
yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Mr. Simon's motion, Mrs. Kessler seconded, the President Pro Tem, Susan Whiter.
Okay, yes.
Mrs. Kessler,
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes,
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
thank you. I can go home and sleep well tonight. Thank you. So the motion passes. Next is the treasurer's report. No, I wrote all this in that block, John. Okay, next is, I apologize, the academic update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
here this evening to review Princeton City Schools Special Education Annual Rating for the 22-23 school year. Going to give an overview of what was measured in that rating and discuss next steps that we are working through as a department to support all 11 of our buildings and our students with disabilities. So on the next slide, you will see that our special education rating is based solely on compliance indicators. There is not an academic component to this. Rather, that information will be released soon from Department of Education. But the compliance indicators that we're looking at on the special education rating include discipline discrepancy, which refers to discrepancies in suspensions and expulsions by race, ethnicity, or for students with disabilities. Also, disproportionality of special ed identification, along disproportionality of racial or ethnic groups in special ed identification as a result of inappropriate identification. Timely initial evaluations, which refers to the percent of children evaluated within 60 calendar days of receiving parental consent. Early childhood transition, percentage of children referred by Part C, which is early intervention services, to prior to age 3 who are found eligible for Part B, preschool services, and who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday. We also look at secondary transition, the percentage of children age 16 or older with an IEP that includes post-secondary goals, transition services, and a process in which students are invited to the IEP meeting and any related agencies are invited to said IEP meeting. On the next slide, continued indicators here. Timely correction of noncompliance. If there are any noncompliance identified, is it corrected within the established time frame? Is our data that we submit timely and accurate? We reported that data in a timely and accurate manner. Our initial evaluations being done timely as well. Is our percentage of children evaluated within the 60 calendar days from receiving parental consent, and then any IDEA audit findings. So on the following slide, you'll see an overview of the rating scale. So this rating is on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being the top rating, 1 being the lowest. So a district is considered meeting requirements if receiving a compliance score of 3.75 to 4. The next level would be needing assistance, which would have the district with a compliance score between 3 and 3.74. I'm not going to read through the other ratings below that, because I'm happy to report, as you can see on the next slide, that Princeton continues to meet requirements. This is the past 3 years. Our rating for the 22-23 school year is 3.86, meeting requirements on a 4-point scale. And on the following slide, you can see a 3-year comparison by each of the indicators. I do want to point out that for the 2021 school year, the early childhood component was not rated that particular year. So you'll see an NR there. And then we did receive a 3 for accurate data. So I have an explanation for that as well, something that we have corrected and will correct moving forward. The piece for accurate data is the result of an incorrect date on one evaluation for one preschool student. That is something that we've corrected and will correct in our procedures and practices moving forward. So our next steps in response to this rating include review of the special education profile when it is released, which is coming soon, and review performance on academic indicators for students with disabilities, and then continue to have regular and building-specific meetings to review the current academic performance and the interventions provided for students with disabilities. To conduct an internal review of compliance indicators and make corrections and adjustments as needed, as I mentioned, with the issue with the date on the preschool evaluation, making sure that that is corrected and that doesn't happen moving forward. We've had a very robust system, multi-tiered systems of support meetings in our buildings this year to review academic and social emotional needs for all of our students, So ensuring that we have proper Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports in place for students, and that we're not over-identifying, and we're identifying students with disabilities when needed and when appropriate, making sure that we've had successful interventions in place for a period of time before taking that next step. We will also continue staff professional development on IDEA requirements, any legal updates, and also meeting compliance indicators. As I mentioned before, our special education profile will be coming soon, and that concludes more of an academic component, including kindergarten readiness for students with disabilities, academic achievement for students with disabilities, access to the general education environment, preparation for life, work, and post-secondary education, our overall IDEA implementation, and then equitable services and supports for our students with disabilities. Are there any questions?
Back on the timely data, you said it was one report that had one date wrong.
One evaluation, it was a day off for the date that was reporting, so.
How do you correct it?
We would amend that, meet with the family, provide them with the updated report and information, and then we just correct that moving forward, that it's not a mistake we make again. That's through professional development, that's through discussion with our school psychologists, intervention specialists, those that take place in that process.
So this is not a computer fix, so to speak. In other words, if you're supposed to cover it for a whole year, it won't.
We would make the change in same goal, which is our computer system for ETRs and IEPs, but we would make sure that we are legally compliant with the dates so that there's an effective start and end date.
Yeah.
And this is a little off topic, but since I spend a great deal of my time in the closet, I have to say how much I appreciate the staff people here who have provided almost everything for me in Spanish as well, because many, many families come, and I'm sorry I took Latin and French, so I'm kind of useless when it comes to that, but the staff in all of the buildings have been so accommodating and so helpful so that I can help these people find what they need. So thank you to the staff.
What would you say is the most surprising and, oh, I did owe your comments, by the way, yes.
Well,
I do. But what would be the most surprising thing from this report that stands out to you that would be a bragging point for us as a district?
I would just say, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's surprising. I think this is just an indication that our team does a good job of compliance from a legal standpoint, making sure that students have what they need, but also following those procedures with evaluations, with carrying out individualized education plans and interventions for students. Very much certain that the 3 rating for the accurate data is an anomaly that won't be repeated next year.
Okay,
that's a good question.
thank you. Thank you.
Would you say you have enough resources to be the top notch in the area?
I would say that we have an excellent intervention team. I would say we have the resources that we need. I know it's a continued process and an ongoing process to continue to provide the necessary interventions, but we have a great team, and I know if there's a need for resources, there would be a discussion and a question for that, but I think we're in a good place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Treasurer's report.
We are in what I believe is the final 2 weeks of our state audit. After conversation with our lead auditor last week, we are in the push to have all questions responded to, of course, given to us also, and completed by this Friday. It has been a fast and furious effort every day, and we did have a phone call today where everyone in the district was thanked for the way we prioritize and rapidly respond to the auditors. She said, "I do wish all districts were like you." So I was just thrilled to have that conversation today. If we meet the target with the auditors on Friday, next week is the review week where they run it up their chain of command and review, and we make little adjustments as they see those. And we hope to file by the end of next week, which gives us, a good week and a half ahead of the deadline, which is December 31st. So that's what we're all hoping for. Reminder to the board, we do have that special meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. and it is here in Viking Village. So that's a special meeting to discuss.
Where specifically?
Mr. Fricky's.
Okay. I don't want to show up here in Matthews and it's dark and cold. Actually, there'll be a concert
Concert.
going on.
And it starts at 5 o'clock. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Can I ask a
Thank you.
question, please?
Sure.
How often do we get a state audit? Is that every
Every year.
year?
It's
Just
a
wanted to-
requirement for public school districts.
And are there any independent audits?
We have
Yeah.
been assigned an independent auditor at this time. We were with the state for many years. Typically, after you've been with the state for a while and there are no issues,
They keep you with
they
the state?
allow you to go out to an independent.
Oh.
They can't handle all 600-plus school districts in the state. So the auditor's office does an RFP and takes bids and assigns independent auditor to
Okay.
districts. So we're either in year 4 or 5 of our first 5-year. Typically, you can go out for a 10-year. So there may be an additional 5 years of work.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Anything else? Then superintendent's report.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot of great things going on here in Princeton, especially since the last time we've had a meeting here. So I'll just highlight a few of those. Last week was Inclusive Schools Week. You may have saw the orange. They even got an orange afro on me, so you know it's important to me. Inclusivity is one of the things I'm most proud about.
It was
in
one
all
of
my
your
time
best
at Princeton.
pictures, really.
Yeah, you like
I
that,
liked
yeah.
it.
So I think inclusivity is one of the things at Princeton, since I've been around here since '03, that I'm most proud of, that has been great. You saw a lot of things going on in the buildings. I was in every building at least once, looking at things they're doing and what they're doing, and then several on Friday. So, and we had a lot of positive comments from people. I did, at least personally, social media and things, loving the things we do and loving what our kids and our buildings are doing. So I wanted to mention that, and that's one of the things that the Princeton pride's about, is that inclusivity, I believe. A lot of holiday concerts going on. This Matthews has been very busy, so the high school is complete. So the last couple of weeks, I was able to see a choir, orchestra, band, and then coming up this week and next week, the Princeton Community Middle School, tomorrow on the 12th, the holiday choir concert is here in Matthews, the 14th on Thursday, the holiday orchestra for the middle school, and then next Tuesday, the 19th, the holiday band concert. So I would encourage anybody, if you can come out and support our young folks and see how much growth they've done. The fall concerts, I was involved in a couple of those and doing some readings and things. So I'm excited to be able to see a little bit of that and see the growth over the last 2 or 3 months that the middle schoolers have had. Fall sports season has come to an end. Something I'm very proud of, and I want to brag heavily on our student athletes, is all our fall teams had a 3.1 GPA or higher.
That's great.
And that's really good, and that's something that I was asking the athletics, send me that form, I want to send that out. I want people to understand that our kids understand they are students and then athletes. And as I've told numerous kids in my time in education, athletes, the better your grades are, the more opportunities you have. You can be a really good player, but if your grades, it limits you if your grades aren't where they need to be. If your grades are good, you can get into all those schools. And the highest GPA was girls water polo at a 4.27 GPA.
Wow.
So that's pretty good stuff. And then I'm going to give a shout out to our cheerleading squad, who won the competition in Middletown last Sunday and won thing I want to add to that is I was at an event in Columbus on Thursday back for BASA, and a superintendent was at that event. Well, she had emailed me when it was going on because I couldn't go. I was driving back from somewhere, and she said, "Man, your girls and guys are unbelievable." And I said, "I know, they got a lot of energy." And then when she saw me, she told me one thing she noticed was like a lot of teams were just being around, and it was in between some stuff. And most of the teams were split up everywhere. Our team was together, and they were cheering together and putting on a show. And you know, I told her that, you know, the coach, I know the coach well. I was a teacher in elementary school, and two of the coaches I taught here at Princeton. So makes me feel good when other schools are seeing how the pride our kids have, the way they bring that energy. If you haven't seen them, come to a basketball game, because they're part of the show. Believe that. They put on a lot of energy, and they're loud, and they cheer on the Vikings. So I really appreciate them. We do have winter sports coming up, so a lot of things going on with that. It seems like every night there's something going on between our junior highs and our high schools. So one thing I do want to tell you about, I forgot my papers I got on my phone here. Homeland Security investigators contacted administration about an alarming trend in Ohio, and really what it was is it's about the online safety of our students. So we're going to do an eye guarding assembly to educate our students on this, the changes, the internet, and how to do things safe on it. It's voluntary to be at the middle school, and the reason to do it at the middle school is that is the group that most gets targeted with online mess, for lack of a better word. So it'll be age appropriate. And then later on in February, we don't have an exact date yet, but we'll get that. We're going to have something for parents and adults that can come and see it as well. I think it's really important, and something that was in the literature I've been reading, was as important not only for us to educate, but important for the parents to educate their kids. And being a father myself, I try to do that, but sometimes my daughter doesn't really want to listen to me like the kids here listen better than my daughter sometimes, but when the school does it, or they hear it from somebody else, maybe it hits home better. So I think this is a really great thing that we're going to be doing, and just getting our kids, because you know, there's things out there online, and this time of year is really bad because of people doing things, shopping and doing things online where kids can get turned the wrong way. So we want to make sure that they at least have some kind of education moving forward, because they're online a lot between phones and computers and things of that nature. Last thing I want to talk about is not as positive, I guess, and that is, as you're aware, we had a hoax yesterday through email. I want to commend my team. As soon as we got that, we started talking and putting some things together, trying to get all the information we can. Mr. McDaniel and the cabinet, some of the cabinet, trying to figure out what was going on and get all the information before we got something out to our families. Because for me, sometimes I've seen people rush to things and don't have all the information they need. So we were able to do that, and then today, around the afternoon, I believe it was, around that time, we had a call, and that came in. A dispatcher from the county called the high school, our SRO, who told Mr. Balmer that someone had called and said there was something here. The authorities were here quick, and they were searching the building. They were going through everything. Even when I got here, as soon as I found out, I got a call from Mr. Fricky. I got over here to help any way I could, and there was an officer outside with a drone checking the top of the building to make sure nothing's on top. So they were doing a really good job of doing that. I commend the high school administration and staff for handling it well. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time they've had to go through this, and I was asked today, this is happening a lot. Do we get desensitized to it? And I said, no, we will always take it serious and make sure we're handling our business, that our kids and our staff are safe. So I want to give them that shout out, give the officers the shout out, and everybody that helped with that today. My hope is we don't ever have to do that again, but this world, we never know, so we have to be prepared, make sure our kids and our staff know what they're doing. So, and that's really all I have. Any questions?
Anybody?
Yes, any thought to having our own drone?
Or what?
Our own drone.
Haven't had that conversation at all. I would say this, I don't know if anybody here knows what they're looking for. If we had one, I think the authorities know better.
Oh, drone.
The police department has
I think they kind of know what they're
Sharonville
looking
has
for,
one.
so never been a conversation I've had. We can have it, but I think the authorities have a really good understanding of what it would look like if something was up there, where we may not know exactly what we're looking at.
That kind of, go ahead.
No, I was just mentioning that because we do have resource officers here that could get it up in the air.
And that'd be something I'd
Right
see if
away.
they're trained on, if they're trained in that or not.
Yeah.
We could have that
Okay.
conversation for sure.
And we have a presentation from the board. Can I do that now?
Sure.
Oh,
Maria,
okay.
do you want to say
No,
something?
I was
Nope.
going to say, I was going to segue, but go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, do your thing.
No, I was just going to segue. I mean, that kind of led me to what I'd like to report out in terms of Great Oaks. I did attend the association's Career Tech of Education Conference, the 29th, like so many things have happened, but anyway, November 29th through December 2nd. And during the conference, was exposed to a lot as it pertains to drones and technology that I will connect with you so that you can do some follow-up. Some really good programs out there for middle school particularly, and then quite a bit for elementary. So as it pertains to AI, there's going to be a conference coming up where they're going to talk about AI and the guardrails that can be put up for education. So there's a lot of conversation right now in terms of what to do and how to bring it to K-12. So it was a great conference. Like I said, a lot of information shared around the country of what other districts are doing, and then many talking about what's to come. So a lot on the technology front.
Yeah, and I would say I've been in a couple times about AI.
Right.
And we were just in one last Wednesday. I was there Wednesday, the rest of the team was there Wednesday, and some of my team was there Wednesday and Thursday, and they had a really good, a couple things I got last week that I hadn't seen before.
Right.
That we're gonna look at for PD and some things. We think it's important. AI is here.
It is, it
And
is.
and as you probably heard in your thing, it's best to learn how to use it.
Right.
Because people are using it. So,
Right.
some guardrails, some things, as you said, around us, so.
And how do we
that's something
embrace
that's
it
on our radar
at
as well.
every level? So that's what I was really enjoyed hearing, is how are we going to do it at the different levels? Because obviously there's a difference between our youngest students and our older students.
Yes, ma'am.
So anyway, it was a great conference, again, to hear what's on the horizon, but also to make those connections. So I'll connect you with what I was able to get. And again, I was really focused on how do we bring in technology in some of our younger students, for some of our younger students, particularly middle school. The other thing is, last Thursday, I held my last meeting as president of the Southwest region. Phew, I got through a year.
Congratulations.
I
Yeah,
got
you did a
through
good
it.
job.
So I was able to hand that over excitedly, even though some said, well, could you do it another year? I'm like, no. But anyway, it's been a great year of representing Princeton for the Southwest region, getting an opportunity to see what other schools, again, Southwest region is about 177 school districts. So it's been an amazing year, kind of a whirlwind of information, but I've shared, along the way. And so again, I've finally got a chance to rest on that one. And then last but not least, we have our Great Oaks regular meeting this coming Wednesday. So if anyone's interested, it'll be 6:30 over at Scarlet Oaks. And just a quick tidbit, I had a chance to see Michelle Walker-Means this past Sunday, and she's excited about coming to work here at Princeton. So it was really good to see her. It's the first time I've seen her in years, but we were at an event and happened to see her, so.
That's good.
Thank you.
That's it.
I just want to thank you for your hard work with the OSBA. And I realize that being able to do your work that you do normally with us on the board and Scarlet Oaks plus the OSBA, that has helped us a lot with the information you've brought to us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So I just want to make a brief presentation on behalf of the entire board to our superintendent, your yard fair, and
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
the treasurer. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Merry Christmas. It's a Merry
Thank you,
Christmas
thank you.
thing. Happy holidays thing.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for your hard work.
Okay, anything else?
Executive
If
session.
not, we will be going into executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
I'm sorry, who was the second? Mrs. Kessler?
Yes?
Mrs. Whiter?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes?
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.